What is happening, y'all? My gosh, sorry for the delay. Oh my goodness, I had some issues with my StreamYard getting it going on YouTube, so I apologize. But happy Tuesday night. How we doing? It is just after 9:34. We are live on a Tuesday. We're talking Lions football. What a weird weekend of football it was, huh? I mean, Lions 16-9 to the Philadelphia Eagles. We're going to be diving into that with our special guest today. We're going to get into that here in just a moment. But we got a lot on the docket. Of course, we're going to be talking Lions, Eagles. We're going to be talking offensive struggles, offensive line, Jameson Williams, talking about how good the defense looked on Sunday. And then we're going to talk about what this means for the future for the Detroit Lions. So we got a lot going on here on the show today, and we want to get you involved. I appreciate everybody for getting involved in the chat. We'll have plenty of questions here today for you guys. We will go through them all in detail. What's going on, Trim? What's going on, James? I appreciate you guys getting involved early. Thank you so much. Again, I apologize for the issues on YouTube. Let me know if you guys see anything, if I need to adjust anything, and we will get up and running. So let's start with, of course, the big news coming out of the weekend. Of course, Lions lose to Philadelphia in the land of brotherly love, 16-9. A game where the offense, outside of a Jameson Williams touchdown, really went stagnant. And we're going to dive into this heavily and some of the major issues we had with our special guest. So let's not wait. Let's not keep him waiting any longer. You can find this man on YouTube at Lions Talk Live every single morning, talking Lions news, breaking news, updates, anything that you could want. Lions news and updates. Go right to this man at Lions Talk Live. Let's bring him on. Dan, my man, how you doing, buddy? Welcome to the show.
Hey, good. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me here, Johnny.
I appreciate you, buddy. And again, sorry about the delay bringing you on. Are you seeing everything okay on YouTube on your end, my man?
Looks all good.
Beautiful. I appreciate you, bud. So let's not delay. Obviously, we know coming off Sunday night's loss, 16-9 with the Philadelphia Eagles, a lot of things to dive into. But let's just start at the top. You know, coming into the game, Lions had the number 2 scoring offense in the league. And obviously, with the showing of 9 points against Philadelphia, things really started to fall off. 3 for 13 on third down, 0 for 5 on fourth down. I mean, we all know the story. So tell me, in your opinion, Dan, with those, 3 for 13, 0 for 5, from your perspective, what was the kind of the biggest factor behind these downfalls, behind these third and fourth down failures?
Well, I think some of it, Johnny, is schematics. I get Dan Campbell's still working his way into being the offensive coordinator in earnest for the team. But you look at what teams like Philadelphia have been able to do, the Minnesota Vikings, the Cleveland Browns, amongst other teams. They figured out some issues with the Detroit Lions offensive line. We're replacing guys that, Zeitler would have, if we could have kept him, would have helped out. If we could have kept Frank Ragnow, I think a lot of things would look smoother. But those guys aren't here. And I still think they're trying to run a lot of the same schemes that you could when you had those guys. Unfortunately, the guys we have now with Glasgow, Yodi, the rookie Ratledge, I think they're not bad, but they're just not who their predecessors were. Because of that, you probably got to get rid of the ball a little bit faster. The other thing that comes into play, like any quarterback, if you get them rattled, you get them off their spot. I don't care if it's Tom Brady. I don't care if it's Randall Cunningham or whoever. Once that internal clock starts getting pushed too much in a quarterback, it's really hard to bring him back on down. And Goff did not have a great game, probably his worst game maybe since his rookie year in the NFL. He looked rattled. He looked inaccurate. And once he got rattled, he's just not the guy that can, kind of take a deep breath and say, okay, let's pick things back up.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm with you. I mean, the offensive line, I think that's kind of the emphasis for everything else that happens with the Lions offensively. And you're right. I mean, losing Frank Ragnow in itself is just such a huge hole. So I think you're exactly right. Let's talk about Sam Laporta a little bit, because I think it kind of stems off of this discussion with the offensive line. And no, he's not directly related in every single sense of the protection, but he is, in my opinion, Jared Goff's security blanket. And when you take him away from this lineup, not only for that security blanket, but he is heavily involved in what they can do with their formations and then the motions and what they can do with scheming certain blocking schemes to get these running backs open. Tell me a little bit about, his impact, and if he's not able to return, what this could mean for the Lions in the long term.
It'll be a major change to the offense on many levels, not just from a blocking, but also you think about just use last Sunday's game as an example with the Eagles. You look at how much their pressure was immediate pressure. How could you help alleviate some of that? Somebody who can get open quickly against bump coverage, over the middle, quick slants, etc., drag routes. Without Laporta, it's nothing against Brock Wright. It's just not in his wheelhouse. Brock Wright is somebody that if he is a third, fourth, fifth option, he can occasionally get open. He's great at a lot of things. It's just being a primary target in an offense isn't one of them. I think if Laporta was in there, you would have seen the Philadelphia linebackers have to drop maybe just a little bit more out of respect to him, which means the blitz or a lot of the fake blitzes they use where they show blitz and then drop somebody else on coverage, that becomes negated to a certain extent. He's going to be out for a while. How long? That's the $1 million question right now with Lions fans and probably even the Lions coaches. It could be, in my opinion, without knowing the full diagnoses, I think he's out 4 weeks to maybe before the season. Until we find out what it is, though, it's all speculation.
Staying with the offense and Jameson Williams, I mean, he's, to me, and I think I saw you come out with a video earlier today. It's like he's kind of on this trajectory now to where he could flip this into true superstardom. And I'm kind of with you there, Dan. So that's where I'm going with this. I mean, now he's had 3 touchdowns in 3 consecutive games. So the targets are there, and the playmaking ability has always been there. But I think the issue that a lot of people go back to is, and its play on the touchdown to me is like the microcosm of the big picture of Jameson Williams. So he makes the huge play and then obviously does the thing in the end zone that gets him flagged. Now, you can make an argument whether that was worthy of a flag or not, but the truth is it got flagged and it caused him a point, which affected the game. So where are you at with Jameson Williams? Are you more on the positive end because of the playmaking ability, or are we still held up on some of the extra or off the field issues?
I would look at it this way. Start with the off-the-field issues, and if you want to throw the penalty after the touchdown in there, fine. These are educational moments for a player. Now, the coaching staff and the front office has to make the determination, is this somebody who will learn from these things? So far, I would say the answer is yes with him. He may keep making mistakes, but I think every time he does learn from them. So as long as he keeps doing that and he keeps growing and developing, we're all going to probably be pretty happy with Jameson Williams, especially as he keeps evolving as a player. Now, just from an X and O standpoint, player improvement standpoint, I think he's improved exponentially from when he left college to his rookie year, from his rookie year to where he is now. Just simple route structures that they use with him now, comeback routes, go routes, in and outs, what do I say, deep, shallow crossers, stuff like that that's more based, footwork based, etc. Getting the elbows involved, getting your body, your hips all in line. These are things he was not taught in college. Go back and watch him in college. He was just simply asked to be more athletic than everybody else on the field, and he got by with it. That's a shame and a sham on both coaching staffs that worked with him. The Lions coaching staff has groomed him. They've developed him. One thing he's got going for him that basically very few people on planet Earth have going for them in the world of athletics, he's just simply more athletic than everybody else. So as his skill sets evolve, as he matures, he's probably going to end up being a number 1 wide receiver. St. Brown, for all of his greatness, there's only so much he can get separation because of his, it's not that he's unathletic, but he's not superior NFL athletic. So, going back to the Eagles game, watch some of their cornerbacks, dial them up, get in press coverage with them and some zone coverage. They stick to him pretty good. And whatever's going on with St. Brown, that's probably a separate episode for you. But he's not getting as much separation as he did earlier in the year. Could be maybe just the coverage is better. Could be he's hurt. But with Jameson Williams, even if he loses a step, how many guys are still as fast as him? And that's the one thing really going for him.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, I hate so much that was a flag in general, because it opens up this whole conversation. I don't know that was worthy of a flag, but again, I'm on the side of it. It benefits the Lions offense to have him and his talent worked in. And I think they'll figure out a way to continue to work this out. I want to stay with the offense. I want to stick with the 0 for 5 on 4th down, because to me, that was one of the biggest things coming out of this game. And it's not what we've come accustomed to with Dan Campbell. Yes, we love the aggressiveness, but I think they were at like a 72% success rate on 4th down before this game. So obviously 0 for 5 has a different look to this. So let me start with this. I'm not saying the Lions or Dan Campbell should change their aggressive style, but do you think that there's anything to be said for not adjusting within a certain game, or looking at the game more situationally for where they were at, weather, location, score, and then adjusting accordingly? Do you think there's a lack or an unwillingness to adjust from that aggressive style?
How about a stubbornness?
Okay, that's a good way to put it.
All coaches suffer from it. You believe so much in what you're teaching, what you're doing, what's worked in the past, and sometimes we all become oblivious to what's right in front of us. That being said, the ones I disagreed with were like the fake punt. You playing a field position in the elements. We all get it. There was a 30, 35, mile per hour wind, etc. Down to the red zone, I didn't really have a problem with it because your defense was playing so well. You had them backed up. Again, playing field position. If you don't get the touchdown on the 4th and 4, whatever it was, you're probably going to be able to hold them and get the ball back around, somewhere in the vicinity of midfield and, get back in scoring position. But going for it at midfield a couple times and then the fake punt, I mean, your defense is playing great, and maybe you just got that much kind of respect for the defense. But, man, you can also dial it back a little bit, kick a field goal or two. I will also throw this out there for people to consider. If the Lions don't get the Jameson Williams penalty, they make the extra point, I do think it impacts the game somewhat. Maybe he does kick a field goal here and there. So while we can all look back and say, man, that extra point missed, didn't impact the game, it impacts how the rest of the game flows from an offense and defense and special team standpoint. So if it was me, I probably would have went for the 4th down on 3 of the 5 opportunities. I probably would have kicked one and then punted one other time too.
Mm-hmm. Well, guys, if you have not already, make sure to subscribe to Lions Talk Live. That QR code in the top corner will get you right there if you haven't already. Dan really does fantastic work every single morning, and really lately, buddy, you've been putting out content pretty much all day with everything that's going on. But every morning I check out Dan on Lions Talk Live. Dan, do me a favor, just tell them where they can find you, what you're working on here coming up, and what you have planned for Lions football moving forward.
You can find me on YouTube at Lions Talk Live. Like Johnny said, we're pretty much live every day of the week, almost every day of the year, roughly 7 a.m. to roughly 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The topics change from week to week. I kind of get going with around 6 a.m., 5:30 a.m. in the morning, figuring out the news and notes from the day. Hey, I'm going to say this to all Lions fans. I get some people are down in dirt right now, but I think the Lions are about ready to turn this thing around and kind of get to maybe a 3-game winning streak, maybe a 4-game winning streak, and then we'll all feel a little bit differently about the season.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, we got three home games coming up, so an opportunity to get some home cooking, and obviously with Thanksgiving, that's always a fun day. I guess before I let you go, Dan, let me throw just one more your way. Is there a game now that you've spotlighted? I mean, obviously, I think we all love the opportunity against the Giants to get right, so we'll skip past that one. But is there a game, maybe Thanksgiving or something past that you've earmarked and said this is the one we got to be ready for?
Yeah, I think, in my opinion, the Thanksgiving Day game, because you win that, you've got 7 days to prepare for Thursday night football the week after against the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas has got an offense. Their defense is a little suspect, but the Green Bay one's going to be the big one. Tell you, Johnny, you get through the Giants, you get through Green Bay, you get through Dallas. Now you have a mini bye week before you go out to see Matty Stafford and the Rams. You know what? I wouldn't rule the Lions out in that one.
I appreciate you, buddy. I'm with you. And I appreciate the positivity you bring to the Lions world here on YouTube. So thank you for your time, Dan. I appreciate you coming on today.
Hey, thanks for having me as always, man.
Appreciate you, buddy. That's Dan with Lions Talk Live. What a good guy. Honestly, I appreciate you, buddy, and having him on is fantastic. Great perspective on the Lions, again, each and every morning on Lions Talk Live on YouTube. If I could just reset this now for myself. There we go. And again, I appreciate you guys so much for hanging in there. I had a little trouble starting off the stream here today. I don't know They've now given the opportunity to stream not only vertically, but horizontally. And what I didn't realize is that to do that, it projects 2 different streams. So when I saw 2 different lives, I deleted one of them thinking, oh, shoot, it posted twice to YouTube. But instead, I just deleted one of the 2. So it screwed everything up. So now that I understand that, okay, there are 2 different live streams, one's vertical, one's horizontal, I won't mess with it anymore. So I apologize. That's what caused a little bit of delay. And Dan, more than anything, I appreciate you holding on for me to get started. That's not typical here. But anyways, let's get moving. Great way to start the live, kind of recapping what we saw with the Lions, obviously focusing in on the offensive struggles they had against the Eagles. And we're going to kind of jump from that point forward. Let me just say to everybody who's been involved here in the chat so far, again, I appreciate you guys. Trim, how you doing? James Jones, what's up? Millicent, Robert Murphy. I appreciate you guys so much for getting involved in the chat and being here while we had our special guest on. Scott Showards, how are you doing? Millicent, all over the chat. I appreciate you guys. And then we'll keep running here as we get you on board. Let's get the chat rolling. There we go. But yeah, great to have you guys on. I appreciate y'all. And again, we'll have a much smoother takeoff here next Tuesday, but I appreciate hanging in there with me. All right, so let's go back to it. I mean, I think the biggest thing we need to focus on is the 0 for 5 on 4th down, 3 for 13 on 3rd down. I mean, to me, those tell a lot of the story there in the game against the Eagles. But what I think that ultimately relates back to, and Dan hit on it at the very beginning, it's the offensive line. The offensive line is the make or break thing for the Lions. And when they lost Frank Ragnow and they didn't re-sign Kevin Zeitler, you had to reshuffle the entire interior of your offensive line. I mean, we've hit on this. I'm not telling you something you guys don't know. But the truth is, that is what will carry the day for the Lions. A good offensive line means a good quarterback, means a good offense. And when you play quality defenses like Philadelphia, like Green Bay in week 1, Kansas City, the teams the Lions have lost to were quality defenses, and they've been able to get after the offensive line. Philadelphia specifically got after the interior of the offensive line, and it really did affect Goff. And you heard Dan with Lion Talks Live lay that out for you there. So that's really, to me, the biggest story of this Week 11 loss here to the Eagles. I think it's correctable or fixable in a sense of what the issue is. The Lions understand they have issues in the interior, and they're going to have to scheme and utilize their talent a little bit differently moving forward to make this work. I don't know if that means shuffling the offensive line. I don't know if it just means more time and continuity together now with Coyote Awasika at the left guard, obviously Graham Glasgow in the middle, Tate Ratledge on the right-hand side. There's also been the injury concerns. I mean, you saw Tate Ratledge struggle with what looked like a little bit of a leg injury in Philadelphia. So you combine that with both tackles. Taylor Decker's been hurt, and it really looks like Penei Sewell's playing through injury each and every game and still playing at an all-pro level. But again, you're asking a lot of injured players and a remixed interior to carry the day. And when people bring up the argument, it's the Lions lost Ben Johnson, the Lions offense is the same because of Ben Johnson. Yeah, that might be a small part of it, but I think the bigger part of it is the fact that the Lions offensive line is different this year than it was last year. Ben Johnson had a much more quality offensive line to play with than did Johnny Morton or even Dan Campbell now that he's calling plays with the current offensive line. So we have to focus there, in my opinion. So question for you guys in chat. Should Dan Campbell and the Lions have been more conservative with the offense on Sunday? And should they be more conservative on 4th downs moving forward? Yes or no? Let me know in the chat. Yes or no? Should the Lions be more conservative on 4th downs moving forward? I would love to hear from you guys in the chat. Millicent, she says, if you watch the game film that focus on the OLine, you can see the things that are very fixable. Also, so many of the errors were all about placement of the hands, positioning of the feet. I mean, for younger players, Millicent, absolutely. Those are correctable items. Absolutely. The question is, can all 3 of those guys, well, let's say 2 of the young guys, the guards, be able to work those things out? And mid-season is a tough time to work those things out. And that's my only concern. James says, wish Frank didn't retire. I agree with you. I think we're all sitting here, James, thinking, man, we'd love to have Frank Ragnow back and it would solve a lot of problems, but it's just not the reality. They got to work through this. Trim says, I think they should be smarter with the plays called when going for it. It's certainly a good observation from the Philadelphia 0 for 5. Like Dan again had pointed out, the fake punt I'm not sure what they thought they saw, because Philadelphia kept their starting defense on the field for that. So it's almost like they sort of knew a fake was coming. That doesn't mean it couldn't have been successful, but the truth is, you're right. The play call wasn't good enough against the defense they had out there. So again, the question is, should the Lions be more conservative given now how the Eagles game went? So for the rest of the season, does that mean they need to pull back some of that aggressiveness? I'd love to hear from you guys in chat. Yes or no? In that case, James said he should have punted. I kind of agree with you there. Field position game would have been the way to go. But on top of the offensive line, we also have to think about the run game. And that, of course, has a lot to do with the way the offensive line is playing. But in some cases, you can scheme a run game to help your offensive line. And I don't know that the Lions helped themselves out with that. Certainly not on Sunday. 74 total yards, 3.5 yards per carry between their two fantastic running backs, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. And that's just not good enough. And that's not going to win football games against quality opponents, especially if the Lions now are able to get into the playoffs. Because everything offensively starts, yes, with the offensive line, but then with the run game. The bread and butter is the run game, the rushing attack, where they build off of the rest of the offense with play action. That's how receivers get separation, get more open. And then obviously receivers have to have a day. You heard Dan again say there seems to be some kind of issue with Amon-Ra St. Brown. We're not exactly sure what that is, but his drop rate has gone up this year. There doesn't seem to be as much separation. And again, that could be many factors. Again, offensive line, timing, rhythm. Jared Goff having to get rid of the football a lot sooner than he would. Not having Sam Laporta against Philadelphia, I think, really affected the operation. We talked about that. But with the offensive line breaking down and then the running game being non-existent, it is just a losing formula. And Jared Goff, for as good as he can be in this offense with a solid offensive line and run game, he can be equally as bad when the offensive line and run game aren't there. He's just not the quarterback that, when he gets off schedule, is able to make plays. I heard a comparison to Tom Brady. Now, again, I'm not saying these two quarterbacks are the same whatsoever, but as far as how they use their feet within the pocket, how you can affect their offenses, it's kind of similar. Brady was able to overcome some of those things in different ways where Jared Goff doesn't necessarily have that. But again, for this Lions offense, when the offensive line is good, when they're able to run the football and work the play action, Jared Goff becomes one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the NFL. And unfortunately, on Sunday night against the Eagles, they attacked the interior and they were very successful, and they kept going back to it. They were able to hold down the Lions' rushing attack, and that caused all the problems. Millicent says, I would like to see more starts with Monty. I think Monty only had 5 touches in the game. I don't think that's enough, but again, the game sort of started to dictate the way offense was being called. But I think you're right, Millicent. I agree with you. I'd love to see maybe David Montgomery a little more early in the game, establish the rushing game. But I think the problem is Jahmyr Gibbs has become a home run threat every time he touches the football. Obviously, in the rushing attack wasn't the case, but they were able to get him going in the passing attack. That was really the only successful thing the Lions were able to do, was pass the ball to Jahmyr Gibbs, and they were able to get chunk plays with that. Hey, Joel, how you doing? He says, not sure how the rest of the Lions season will go, but in the offseason, they'll need to experience an offensive coach, offensive line experience, backup quarterback. That's what they'll need. Oh, yeah, I mean, it sounds like they're going to be looking for somebody else to play call. That's for sure. And I do think they're going to have to build up offensive line. So I'm with you. I appreciate you joining the chat. Trim definitely wants more knuckles. James says his touches went down. Yeah, they did. They really did. So they're going to have to reconfigure how they sequence some of their players within the scheme. That will certainly help. But going back to St. Brown, again, and those issues that I think he might be having, and we're not sure exactly what this is, but to be targeted 12 times and only have 2 catches in Philadelphia, that's a huge problem. And it's not just timing. I mean, it's not just Jared Goff. It's not just the offensive line. So there's something going on the other side, and we're going to have to figure out what that is. Let's talk about the defense. Let's talk about the Lions' defense against Philadelphia. Because the loss, the issues with the offensive line, the J-Mo thing, all of that could kind of be a overshadow for what was a really, really good defensive performance by Kelvin Shepard and that side of the football. With the fact that the Lions offense put them in such a bad position multiple times with not flipping the field, turning the ball over, fourth down issues, not scoring points in the red zone. So many things played against the Lions defense in this matchup. And you think about the fact that they're already playing the Eagles offense, which has been up and down this year, but it's still Jalen Hurts, it's still Saquon Barkley, and they still have talent on their offensive line, and they're able to do things. And in spurts, the Eagles were able to show what they can be, but the Lions defense was up to the task. They held the rushing attack for the Eagles down. They didn't give up explosive plays, many explosive plays, nothing over the top. And again, outside of that Jalen Hurts touchdown, they were very, very good. So it's really unfortunate that the offense couldn't help them out. I mean, one or two of those fourth downs could have changed this game. So I don't want to leave this conversation about what happened in Week 11 without touching on what Kelvin Shepard's doing with his defense. Remember, they're still playing very hurt in the secondary. They're expecting to hopefully get DJ Reed back very soon. We're still waiting to hear on Kirby Joseph, but they've held up well. And defensively, I was very happy with what we saw against the Eagles. And it's too bad the offense couldn't round things into shape to get them a win. Tush push stop. Oh, yes, James. Thank you for saying that. That's great. Thank you for saying that. I mean, right there is a reason to hold your hat defensively. They were able to stop not only one time, but the tush push twice on a back-to-back situation, which probably has never happened in the history of the tush push. So you have to, and that's not the, I wish they won, because if they had won the football game, that would be a much bigger story. But I think that's another thing that's overshadowed because of what happened. But that, to me, was huge, James. I agree. Yeah, that was huge. That was interesting. Stopping the tush push is not easy, and I wonder if other teams will take notice. But what I will say is that I think when that happened, James, Cam Jurgens had just gone out, and they lost their right guard or right tackle, whatever it was. That was the right tackle. Then they lost Cam Jurgens. So they were really playing without a couple of the key pieces to that tush push in that moment, but we'll still take it. It was a great stop. So let's talk about the playoff picture. Obviously, as the title says, Lions are now on the outside looking in, and it's not a place we're used to being, especially considering last season and obviously getting to the conference championship the season before. So this is not a place the Lions are used to being in. But with the loss to the Eagles, the Lions now fall to 6-4, and they find themselves on the outside of the playoffs looking in. Right now, the NFC North is really a three-team race. Bears are at the top of the NFC North with everything we've talked about in the offseason, with all the craziness that was the Chicago Bears. To this point, they've gotten 7 victories, and at 7-3, they are on the top of the NFC North in sole possession of first place. Now, there's an argument to be made. Those 7 victories have come against bad teams, and I don't know that the Bears have truly proven themselves. Caleb Williams is still scrambling for his life, but Ben Johnson is doing some good things in Chicago, and right now they are in the lead in the NFC North. Can they sustain it? Packers at 6-3-1. Again, one of the worst 6-3-1 teams I've ever seen as far as them being up and down. They've lost games to teams they should not be losing to. The offense disappears at times. So I question kind of what the Packers are, but again, they beat Lions week 1 pretty handily, and they hold the tiebreaker. So it's going to create an issue, like Dan said with Lion Talks Live here earlier, our special guest, that Thanksgiving game against the Packers will really tell the story for the rest of the season. Lions then behind the Packers at 6-4, Vikings in last place in the NFC North at 4-6, losing to the Bears this last weekend. So the Lions have lost their grip on the NFC North, which then obviously takes them out of any sort of playoff mix at this time. Right now, the Lions sitting in the 4th wild card spot, so they would miss the playoffs at this point if they started today, with the 49ers, Packers, and Seahawks getting the wild card. In that case, Eagles, Rams, Bears, and Bucks are your current division leaders. So the margin for error is now almost 0. And it creates a situation where next week, coming home against the New York Giants, it is, in essence, a must-win for the Lions. If they can't lose this football game. They shouldn't lose this football game. And I'll have my full game preview coming out this Friday, which will lay out Lions-Giants and hopefully a recovery game for the Lions. But now it's very important that they get this win. Opening odds have the Lions as a 10.5-point favorite against the Giants. Obviously, with Jackson Dart not being involved, Jameson Winston will be the quarterback for the Giants, most likely on Sunday at a 1 o'clock kickoff. So this should be a bounce-back spot for the Lions with no excuses. What's up, Nick? He says, Detroit honestly moved the ball better than Philadelphia, and the defense actually gave up less yards per play than the Eagles, but field position was heavily in favor of Philadelphia and the turnover margin. That's a great point. Great points all together there, Nick. I appreciate you, man. Milson says, Lions will be right back in there very soon. Bears have had a soft schedule. Remainder of the schedule is quite the gauntlet for the Bears. They could very well go 0-7. You're exactly right, Millicent. You're exactly correct. The Bears still have a lot to prove. They got to beat some more quality teams for me to feel like they're for real. But right now, we're at the top of the NFC North. Kind of crazy. Nick says, in an ugly defensive game where nobody could sustain long drives, Dan Campbell decided to be ultra aggressive and not pin Philadelphia deep by punting. That hurt him very badly. I agree with you, man. You're making excellent points today, Nick. 100%. There are certain games that ultra aggressiveness will hurt the Lions, and it did in this case. Dan Campbell admitted it. If he could take some of those play calls back, he would. But he's also said that he's not going to change who he is. He's not going to change the identity of the team. That's maybe the most worrisome thing. The next level of Dan Campbell is being able to in-game adjust in the moment on top of the analytics that he's given. And I heard Mike Valeni talk about that today, and I'm not a huge Mike Valeni fan, but sometimes he makes good football points. And the truth is, I love Dan Campbell's aggressiveness. I want them to go for it on 4th downs. I love that the organization is behind him in that case, but they will be behind him when they win a Super Bowl even more. And so for me, the next level of Dan Campbell's coaching is to hone in the aggressiveness enough to say, today isn't the day to be aggressive. Today, right now, against the Philadelphia Eagles, is not the time to be ultra aggressive. And that doesn't mean you can't be ultra aggressive the very next week or the very next drive, even, right? But maybe in this moment, we don't have to be. And like Dan said, it's a stubbornness that they have to get over. What's up, Trim? Lions only lose one more to LA on the way to beating them in the playoffs and the Eagles. I'd love to see a rematch of Matt Stafford and the Lions again. Joel Garza says, Dan Campbell has faith in the offense line. Hope it happens. They will need it. Yes, they will. We must win the last few games. James, you're right. I mean, they got matchups against the Minnesota Vikings and the Bears to end the season. And obviously, with the way the win-loss records are shaking out, it looks like that Bears game at the end of the year could mean something, unless, like Millicent says, the Bears just fall off, which is also a possibility. Jacob says, Fraud got exposed. This will be his last season. Jacob, who? Are we talking about Dan Campbell? Who's the fraud? I'm willing to have the discussion with you, but I just want to make sure I know what I'm talking about. Fraud got exposed. This will be his last season. Who would we talk about, Jacob? Nick says, so Dan has to evolve, read the game situation. Detroit is good enough to beat anyone, agreed, anywhere, even with the OLine struggles. Will they score every drive? No. Will it look ugly sometimes? Yes, and they have to be okay with that, right? Nick, I'm with you, man. We are in lockstep. I love where you're coming from today. Love it. Jacob says, Campbell, calling Dan Campbell a fraud, got exposed, and says this will be his last season. Jacob, I don't agree with that. I'm not saying like there was an issue against Philadelphia, and I've made the argument, even in the offseason, I made some content that indicated that will Dan Campbell's aggressiveness ultimately cost the Lions? And I think it was part of the reason that things got out of control against Philadelphia. So I'm with you there. And I agree with you. Gambling is not a strategy. So that's why I'm saying the gambling needs to turn more into situational aggressiveness. And that's, to me, a big difference. If we're just gambling, I agree with you. That's not the approach we should take. But yeah, I can't agree with the whole his last season. I mean, because we have to circle back to like where we're at, where the Lions are at right now. And 6-4, losing to the Eagles. No, sure, we'd love to be 10-0, but it's not realistic. But we are still living through one of the best eras of Lions football. Many would argue it is the best era of Lions football. 15-2 last year, back-to-back playoff berths. They were in the conference championship. So there's a lot of good things that Dan Campbell and this organization has done here recently. And I hate to take one loss and compile that into a Dan Campbell firing. So I don't know that I would go there yet, but we certainly need to see some tweaks to this aggressiveness. Millicent says MCDC will get better with the rhythm and play calling. We'll see it beginning in Sunday's game. I mean, it has to. I think it just has to get better. But let's not disregard the Giants' defense. Now, offensively, they're a mess. I don't think they can keep up with the Lions. But defensively, that defensive front for the Giants is no joke. I mean, they're going to have to protect. The offensive line is going to have something in front of them. Jacob says, I can see Lions falling off, making the game not relevant against the Bears. That is a possibility. I mean, if the Lions can't turn around, if they somehow get upset this weekend, then, buddy, we're having a whole different conversation next week. I mean, you come back and find me if the Lions lose to the Giants on Sunday, we'll be telling you a different story. But yeah, James, coming from 0-16, and believe me, I lived through that very hard that season. That was not a good year. Nick says, I'm hoping Brad is trying to figure out to do a ton of restructuring so he can bring Linderbaum to Detroit. I'd be okay with that. Trim says, MCDC ain't in jeopardy unless we have consecutive losing seasons. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, there would have to be so many things to compile on top of each other this year, or some kind of scandal to come out to think that that's ever going to change. So yeah, we're not going to go there. I just think we need to overcome the issues on the offensive line, and I think that will start to go the right way. So looking ahead for the Lions schedule, we talked about the upcoming game for the Giants, and I will have a full game preview on Friday like we always do here at Johnny Gaz Sports. But after that, then we're looking at the Thanksgiving Day game against the Packers, and that probably is the biggest game of the year considering where the Lions will be at. Now, I always hate to assume, so we'll have to see what comes out of the Giants game, but if the Lions are able to get a win and come in at 7-4, that I think would set up for a matchup that could mean everything for the NFC North. The Green Bay Packers, they have the Vikings this week before next week's Thanksgiving Day game. So certainly that's not a gimme, but the Vikings have to travel to Green Bay. And I think with the Vikings offense, Green Bay should certainly be favored and have the leg up in that game. But the Lions then will have Packers on Thanksgiving, Cowboys after that, starting December, and then a matchup in LA against the Rams and Matt Stafford. That'll be excellent. And those two teams hopefully coming in very hot. And that'll be a huge matchup. Then it's Steelers, Vikings, Bears for the Lions to finish. So the Lions are at 6-4 right now. I got a question for you guys in chat, okay? 7 games remaining for the Lions on this current schedule. Big games against the Packers, the Rams, and what could be the Bears at the end of the season. Where do you have the Lions now finishing? Considering they now lost at Philadelphia, they're 6-4. Where do you have the Lions finishing up? Again, they have Giants, Packers, Cowboys, Rams, Steelers, Vikings, Bears. What will be the Lions' final record at the end of the season? Or if you want, like Trim just did, he put 5-1. So again, we got 7 games left. What will the Lions' record in those 7 games be? Again, Giants, Packers, Cowboys, Rams, Steelers, Vikings, Bears. 7 games. How will the Lions finish those games? Trim says 5-1. We're still 1 game short, Trim. So I'm assuming you meant 6-1. Or 5-2, maybe. James says, I think we can at least win 5 more. Robert has the Lions finishing 11-6. James says, if we don't gamble on fourth. Amen. Jamal, what's up, man? Says 12-5. 12-5 is where I had the Lions before the season started. 12-5. So that would mean one more loss for the Lions, and they got some big games coming up. 12-5. I'm hanging on at 12-5. I'm now kind of closing in on 11-6 based on this most recent loss, but who knows? Millicent has 6-1, with 7-0 being a real possibility. I'm going to hang in there with you, Millicent. Nick says 11-6. James 11-6. Nick, so 5-2. Jamal's got the same. He's hanging out 11-4, 12-5. So yeah, I mean, let's talk about kind of the red flags, the risk factors as the Lions move through this schedule. I mean, we talked to the offensive line. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Can the interior of the offensive line get things together? Can they retool? Can they shuffle? Can they get this thing to the point where the interior of the offensive line can hold up against quality defenses? And again, although the Giants are struggling, and offensively they will not hold up with the Lions, defensively I think they can get after the quarterback, and that's a concern. So the Lions will be tested on that end on the offensive line. So that is a red flag going into next week. Sam Laporta, another big red flag, I think, for this Lions team. And we hit on it with Dan a little bit. To me, Sam Laporta is that security blanket. And he's a great pass catch threat, but even more so, he's great at being able to be utilized within the offense in so many different ways, as far as how they set up their formations, how they utilize motion within the scheme, having to cross block, and again, he helps with everything, and not being there, have to rely on Brock Wright and depth pieces at tight end. That is a huge issue, a huge loss for the Lions. And right now, they haven't really given a time frame for when he's going to return. They put him on short-term IR, which means he'll at least be out an additional 3 weeks, and then they'll have to reevaluate him at that point. And Dan Campbell didn't just say he's coming back. So I don't know. It's a back issue. I've heard some serious things like vertebrae problems. It's not good. So we're going to have to keep our ears to the ground on Sam Laporta. But ultimately, it seemed like an identity crisis offensively. Offensive line, rushing attack, getting back to the bread and butter things that they do so well. Yeah, Nick, I haven't heard it's a fracture. I've heard it's an issue with some of the vertebrae, but I'm not a doctor, and I think they've been very quiet or silent about what it actually is so that people don't speculate. But the fact that they went to IR, that's not a good sign. So again, let's give it some time. We know we're going to be without him at least for a few weeks. So Lions are going to have to figure this thing out from the tight end perspective. So my final thoughts here as we kind of start to wrap up the live for today. And again, I appreciate you guys being involved. Everybody that's been in the chat, I'm so sorry again about how this live started on YouTube. I really was not aware of how it would project both a vertical and horizontal live. Now that I understand it, it's two different lives. You can access either one depending on if you're watching from mobile or if you're watching on a computer, and I'll get better at that. So I think it caused a little bit of confusion up front, but we'll have that ironed out for next week. Always 9:30 on Tuesdays, and I will be back next week, hopefully talking a victory over the Giants. But my final thoughts for this week, yeah, it was a bad loss. Week 11, Sunday Night Football against Philadelphia, it was a letdown in a sense of the offense. You thought that with Dan Campbell assuming the play calling duties and starting to get back to some of the bread and butter things that they did, which showed in Washington, but I think what was missed by a lot of people was the fact that the Washington defense is just bad. And Washington was not up to play the Lions last Sunday. But in Philadelphia on Sunday night against the Super Bowl defending champs, I mean, that's a different animal. And they prove that the Lions are having to correct some issues, especially in their offensive line. So it was a letdown offensively. It really was. But I thought it was a good game in a sense of you had two heavyweight fighters going up against each other, defensively throwing their best punches. But the truth was, on the offensive side for the Lions, the quarterback wasn't good enough because the offensive line wasn't good enough. And everything else just kind of snowballed from there. It says YouTube won't open up for a subscription. Let me try something for you here, James. Here, let's do this. I just put the QR code in the top right corner. If you're using your mobile, you can scan that. Maybe give that a try, see if that helps. Otherwise, you might just have to go to youtube.com/Johnny Gaz Sports, or I can shoot you a link if you want to DM me. I'm sure I can get you in. I appreciate you trying to subscribe. If you haven't already, guys, hit the like button on the stream. It's really the best free way to help out the channel and these lives. It kind of pushes everything out there, so I appreciate that very much. Oh, James, you're talking about like joining. Okay. Yeah, so subscribing is completely free. If you subscribe on YouTube, all you're doing is subscribing to the channel. If you hit join, that then walks you through some options to join as become a member, which I do a lot of fun membership videos there. But I always have free content at Johnny Gaz Sports on any one of the social medias. So one last question for you guys in chat before we get out of here today. And this is really the big one now. And it might seem ridiculous to some people, but we talked about the Lions now being on the outside looking in. So let me say this. Let me ask you this. When all said and done, do the Lions make the playoffs? Do the Lions climb out of this? Do they make the playoffs? And can they win the division? Let me know. Trim says, do you know what happens to people who watch Johnny Gaz and don't like and subscribe? Do you? You just made the list. I can't steal that from Villain. I like that, though. That's good. Dan Campbell gave Philly a short field all night as well. Skip, you are correct, sir. We hit on that big time. I mean, the offense put the defense in such terrible positions all night long. It's amazing the defense was able to hold up the way they did. You know, I mean, give Calvin Shepard and that group a lot of credit. Nick says Lions will make the playoffs. Bears are going to win one or two more games down the stretch. And I think you're right. I think the Bears fall off. Mills says, yes, the Lions make the playoffs and win the division. Absolutely. I love it. Milson, I appreciate you. Appreciate you guys very much. Thank you so much. So this week, again, we'll have a short coming out tomorrow. I had that conversation with Dan from Lion Talk Live earlier in the live, so we'll probably cut that up a little bit, throw that out there for everyone to enjoy. Again, make sure to go check out Dan at Lions Talk Live if you haven't already. Again, he is live every single morning on top just about every single day as well, and he always has the good breaking news for Lions. There's a little bit of information there in his channel. A lot of fun over there, and a good group of people. They're always chatting. A lot of you guys have come over from that group, so I appreciate the Duke crew and everybody that's gotten involved over there. But great people to talk Lions football with. Make sure to check out Dan and the Duke crew. And of course, we've got to show some love to the Villain 313 Villain Squad. We appreciate you, Villain, for allowing us to use your platform to go live. And again, a lot of the folks from your community have come in and joined our chat as well. So bringing those communities together here, talking Lions football with you guys is exactly why I do this. So I appreciate it so much. So make sure to check out 313 Villain Squad on YouTube and Facebook. Russell goes live just about every day and is coming out with content constantly. Nick says, I'm not confident in the division because of the Packers defense. Yeah, I mean, Thanksgiving is going to tell us the whole story, man. Trim says, I gave him the idea because I was saying what I said to you about subbing. Absolutely. Thank you, Trim. Trim, you're the man. You've been so involved. I appreciate you so much, buddy. And really, Trim, you're involved with all of those creators I've just laid out to you. Those are great people. And Trim being involved in all of those groups, it's a really, like I said, it's just good people, all positive, wanting to talk Lions and just enjoy what this is, you know? And that's what's great about a lot of the communities here within Lions content on YouTube and Facebook. You got a lot of positivity. It's a lot of fun. So I appreciate you guys. So we'll wrap it up there. Again, we'll have shorts coming out this week. Friday will be the game preview, Lions and Giants. And hopefully we're talking nothing but good things next week on Tuesday. Make sure to come back and see me 9:30 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesdays, Johnny Gaz Live on any one of your social networks. Search for @Johnny Gaz Sports. There is fun, concise, and reliable Detroit Lions content from myself. More than anything else, make sure to take care of yourself and your mental health. I honestly mean that. I say at the end of every video, and although it becomes a broken record, it is so true. Everything else like with the Lions offensive line. Everything else starts there. Well, for you, everything else starts here with your mental health. So take care of yourself. Have a fantastic night. Enjoy the rest of your week. I'll see you guys before Thanksgiving next week. So we'll have our Thanksgiving celebration together next Tuesday. Millicent, thank you. Scott, thank you. Nick, Trim, James, Skip, Thee, how you doing? Appreciate all you guys in chat. Take it easy.